Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Pony Pundits. Friday, I'm the Prez, the announcer. I get an intro for this show. Marco D'Angelo from WagerTalk.com, co-founder. Sig, the guy in the middle, WagerTalk.com, and Jeff Zidek. I hope I said your name right. We're honored to have you. Marco, it's a privilege to do the guest announcing for your show, my brother.
Hey, Prez. Well, I wanted you to stay on for the opening today, and then you can get the hell out of here. But it is your birthday. I want everybody to know, Prez's birthday today. What is it, 51 or 52?
I am 51 today. I think that's 19 years younger than you.
No, not quite, but I guess I am still older. And you are co-founder of WagerTalk. You and I started WagerTalk, and it's been an incredible ride. But I want to not only wish you a happy birthday, but I want to give everybody a life lesson, and it's a saying that we have heard many, many, many times: never judge a book by its cover. Because I want to tell everybody the first time that I met the Prez, and what was that, Prez? Was it 2003, 2004? Was it Bally's, Las Vegas?
Good. Oh, you have just walked yourself into hell. Go on, Marco.
Okay, and don't judge a book by its cover, because I walked away from the first time I was introduced to you, and I walked away saying to myself, "What an arrogant asshole!" And but I got to know you, and I was totally wrong. That's
about which
I've
one?
I've only been wrong twice. Wait. I've only been terribly wrong on reading people twice in my life, and this is why the example of judging a book by its cover is so important. I thought you were an arrogant ass, and you turned out to be one of my closest friends, best business partner I could have. Not going to mention any names, but I did the reverse of getting to know somebody in Las Vegas, and Jeff's laughing. He knows who I'm talking about.
Everybody knows who you're talking about, Marco.
Okay. Well, I'm not saying.
Okay. Well, listen, dude. I really appreciate the kind words, but you did open up a can of worms, so I'm going to regale Jeff and Sig with the first time I met you.
Oh, shit.
So,
okay.
I hosted a conference called the Sports Betting Festival, and a bunch of handicappers and whatnot came in. Marco was there, flew in from Pennsylvania, and I had a swag bag that I gave out to everybody. And in the swag bag, I had negotiated with a strip joint free lap dance coupons. So every swag bag had a coupon for a free lap dance that they had to present to the stripper at the strip club. Marco proceeded to spend the next 2 hours collecting these coupons from anybody who wasn't going to use theirs. Dude must have had like 12 free lap dances, one after another. I'll never forget that night, Marco.
Okay, thanks, Prez. Maybe that's when I started to like you.
Well, I was one of the guys to give you my coupon.
Yeah.
Anyway, enjoy the show. Enjoy the show. Thanks for the best wishes. And, Jeff, we do appreciate anybody coming in and joining the Wager Talk family. I will put myself on mute and hand the show over to the man in the ugliest shirt.
Did I win this week's contest?
Yeah, yes, dude.
All right, guys. This is the Pony Pundits. It's Friday, and May 22nd. We've got our normal partner in crime, a.k.a. the shirt, Mr. Pick 4 himself. Another free Pick 4 winner last week. Man, you're making me look bad, dude. I lost a head bob for mine, and we won't go there about, head bob. And so you got it again last week. Congratulations on the Pick 4, Sig. And we've got a special guest with us this week, Sig. We're bringing in Mr. Jeff Zidek. Our announcer pronounced your name wrong, but it is Zidek. And Jeff is the track announcer at the Meadows, and you've heard me talk about the Meadows many, many times on the show and other podcasts. And Jeff's been a friend of mine for as long as I can remember. We're going back, Jeff. You've been in horse racing for 32 years. I knew before that, because when you were going to college, you were going to St. Vincent College. You did a lot of stuff with the audio visual department with the sports at St. Vincent College. If St. Vincent College, anybody from Pennsylvania knows what that college is famous for. It is the home of the training camp of the Pittsburgh Steelers every year. They go to Latrobe, Pennsylvania, hang out there. I've spent many nights in Latrobe at now I just blanked on the name of the bar now. It's been so long since I've been back there. Jeff, what was it?
Probably Dino's.
Dino's was the other one, the big one. Sharky's, that's it. Sharky's, yes. I spent many a time there chowing down a few chicken wings back in the day. Dino's had good chicken wings too, but Sharky's was the big one. Jeff, I appreciate you joining us. You're going to add some insight to us and give everybody a little bit of background about you. As I said, you are the track announcer at the Meadows right now. The main guy. You've been calling races at the Meadows for a long time. I remember when you called your first race at the Meadows. I think, was it a Sunday night? They used to, or no?
Yeah.
Sunday night. Right? You. I don't even remember. It's been so long ago. If it was a text or a phone call, but you told me watch
the cell phones back then.
Well, you let me know to watch the last race that night because we had the Meadows on our cable channel. It was one of the rare nights that I wasn't at the Meadows. I didn't have anything racing, and lo and behold, this guy takes the mic for the final call of the night at the Meadows, and you called your first race at the Meadows. I know you were into horse racing beforehand, but I kind of feel like I grew up with you at the races. You used to work for me when you were going to St. Vincent College, and we used to, after work, a lot of times would head on down to the track and different things, and spend a lot of time at the track. So thanks for joining us. And the first question I got to ask you, anybody that knows harness racing will know the name Roger Houston, one of the most iconic figures in harness racing. He's called over 180,000 live, races in his day. He is the voice of the Little Brown Jug, one of the Triple Crown races for harness racing. He has been the track announcer at the Meadows forever. I don't even remember how many years he was there, as long as I can remember going back to the Meadows. And he retired here, and you took over full-time duties in November. We always ask this in sports. We say that it's always hard for the first coach that takes over, a storied program after, a legend retires. Did you feel any of that pressure with Roger Houston filling in for him?
I've been asked that many times, and the honest answer is absolutely none at all. No pressure at all. And there's a reason for that. And it's the fact that I've been there for 30 some years. I was talking to the same audience, looking at the same view I'd had for 30 years. Nothing was new for me because I filled in for Roger all the time over the past 30 years. And so I felt no pressure at all. I never even gave it a thought because I was just going in and doing the exact same job I had done for so many years, as his backup. Now, had I walked into a completely different situation, gone to a completely new track for me, where I followed somebody who'd been there for 44 years like Roger had, I probably would have felt the pressure a little differently. Again, I'm walking into the exact same, how many times can you take a new job in life where you don't have to do any training, you don't have to meet anybody, you already know everybody and they know you. So that really took the pressure off. And so to me, it was just, instead of going to the track once every so often, once a week to be a co-host or once every month to go fill in for Roger, I started going every day. And that was really the only difference for me. So no, honestly, I never did feel any of that pressure. And again, that's the reason why. Had I walked into a different situation, it would have been a little different.
There's the phrase "jack of all trades," and boy, that doesn't. It applies to you. You're the epitome of it, to be honest. Over those 32 years, what haven't you done at the Meadows? And I know it even includes you've cleaned some stalls back in the day.
Oh yeah, I had a trainer's license for a lot of years as well. So I was the PR director for a while. I started out as a backup announcer, a PA announcer in-house. They used to have an in-house announcer and a TV announcer. And then I worked my way onto the TV show, worked my way into the PR office as the PR director. Then I left there full-time. And when I left there full-time, I had already been training horses that were racing in Ohio at Northfield Park because you couldn't race where you were working full-time. And so I was racing in Ohio, so then I started racing at the Meadows. Didn't have a whole lot of success doing that. I ended up taking another job outside of racing and built that up, and then still came back and started working part-time again at the Meadows. And so I think I was gone from the Meadows for maybe 9 months total, and then I was back from full-time. I was working just part-time back in TV, just as on the side. I've worked for the Pennsylvania Harness Racing Commission, working for the fair circuit. I've been the Fair Horsemen's Association president. I've worked in, again, you name it. I mean, I've been a track handicapper. I've worked behind the scenes TV. I've worked on air TV. I've done really just about everything there is to do in racing. I haven't tried my hand at shoeing, and that one I'll leave that one to the experts.
Yeah, and going back during the day, Jeff and I have owned horses together back in the day. It's been fun. Been a lot of great memories. And when you get to do something with friends, it just makes it that much more enjoyable. Just like this show, getting to do it with Sig. And Sig, we get a lot of talk on Twitter and that. It happens whenever somebody will post after a race and say, look at this, the morning line on this horse was 10-1 and he goes off 6-5 favorite. Who the hell made these morning lines? Well, that's a great segue. You've made morning lines back in the day, and people ask, how are the morning lines made, Jeff? Could you tell us how they are made and what most tracks are going to now in regards to the morning line?
Well, I think the morning line has changed a lot over the years. I mean, both of you have been around horse racing long enough, and whether it's harness or thoroughbred, I think everybody can agree on something, and that is that our number of people that we bring into the racetrack on a daily basis that are newbies, that are uneducated racing fans, that number is very, very small. I would venture even conservatively at this point to say that 90% of our horse bettors are either experts that follow that track every day, or they follow some track every day. And so, for instance, I know the Meadows. That's where I've been for 30 years. I know all the horses. I know the drivers. But I'm not an expert on a track we're going to talk about, Churchill Downs. But I know my way around racing. I'm not uneducated about racing. I can handle making my own selections at a track where I'm not familiar. I think the morning line was originally designed to help those people that walk in and saw racing as entertainment, and they just came in for the entertainment value, wanted to place a few bets. Morning line give you kind of an idea of who to look at. I think that has changed over the years. I don't think morning line odds mean as much anymore, but the morning line is important to me. I believe morning line, the most important thing is where you place those horses in order. To me, the morning line is going to be the most important to tell me who the track handicapper thinks is the best horse in the race, all the way down to who the track handicapper thinks is the worst horse in the race. I look at those numbers at the bottom that say the morning line says 5-7-6-2, not that the morning line says, oh, this horse should be 3-1, this horse should be 9-2. The odds are irrelevant. And as quickly as I can here, let me explain how the odds get set. First off, every track kind of has its own system of how to do it. But that system all falls mathematically, it has to fall into a certain pattern. So you can go online and look this stuff up, but there are certain numbers that have to be used. For instance, if you look at how many horses are in the race and what the track takeout is on a win bet. And so from there, it's calculated that it has to add up to a certain, so you can't have every horse in the race can't be listed 2-1 in the morning line. The math doesn't work. So you have to have a mix of lower and higher, but that mix has to come out to an exact figure. And so when I started doing the morning line, I would fill in for Roger and do the morning line when he wasn't able to do it. But he gave me a chart that he had already had all those worked out. Now, they'll keep things a little bit separate. So, for instance, some tracks are okay with making a horse 4-5 on the morning line. Some tracks, you'll never see that price. Some tracks are okay with making a horse 50-1 on the morning line. Most tracks don't. The Meadows, for example, the lowest you'll ever see a morning line favorite, I believe, is 7-5, and that's even just in a 6-horse field. You get up into a 9-horse field, 10-horse field, you won't see a morning line horse lower than 2-1. In reality, are you going to sometimes have a 3 to 5 shot in a 10-horse field? Absolutely. But the way the morning line is done, it doesn't always work out that way. I can look at a race and say, well, this horse should be 1 to 9. But on the morning line, I might end up making it 6 to 5 because that's as low as we go at our particular track. Question is why? Why do we have those certain numbers that we won't go below or won't go above? My personal opinion, and again, a lot of this is just my opinion, I'm not speaking for other people here, but my opinion is to kind of not alienate people and keep people from getting too upset. You know, you're a horse owner. Marco, do you want to open the program and see that the track handicapper says my horse is going to be 99 to 1? How great is it going to be for you to say, hey, come on down to the track and watch my horse. Tell your friends, come down to the track and watch my horse today. Oh, what kind of price is he? Well, he's morning line at 99 to 1. You're not going to get too many people want to go with you. And likewise on the other end of that, I don't think you want to make a horse 1 to 5 on the morning line. That's going to take away, first off, it's going to anger the other people in the race because now they're going to look and say, oh, the track handicapper thinks my horse is 20 to 1 here. But also it's going to prohibit some betting. When you see a horse on the morning line at 1 to 5, you really want to bet that race. So I think there are reasons why you see the morning line numbers stay in more of a middle range.
Let me jump in for a second, Jeff. You said me as an owner that I would get angry when my horse is 99 to 1. I actually would love to see my horse be higher odds because the gambler mentality in me is, if my horse is, I don't want to ever see me the 3 to 5 favorite unless I'm racing for $1 million. Okay, because I'm sending money through the window. So I just jump in there, and that goes to the public as far as betting too, because you don't want to bet, a 3 to 5 shot. You'll hear the phrase where, and I love TV announcers, there's a lot of great analysts on TVG and such, but how many times have you hear them say, okay, this horse is 3 to 5, he towers over the field, but let's look for somebody to beat him, because they don't want to play 3 to 5, and then they go try to find that 3 to 1 or 4 to 1 shot. So yes, it does deter betting.
Well,
sorry to jump in.
That's all right, but I think a big thing with handicapping is that, and Sig, you know this, Marco, you know this, we don't make our living on betting the 3 to 5 shots. Likewise, we don't make our living betting the 20 to 1 shots either. We find that sweet spot in the middle. We're always looking for who's the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th best horse in the race. Anything could happen that can move one of those horses up a couple of spots, get them onto the ticket, and help us to make money. And so I think when I'm doing the morning line, I am trying to predict the odds. I really am. I don't use a formula anymore. I look at my opinion and the way I write the race. I go first through last. And I rank these horses who I think is going to be the best, who I think is going to be second best, who I think is going to be third through whatever down the line. And then I'll go to the chart and say, okay, it's a 10-horse field. All right, I have 3 options for this race. I can make the favorite 2 to 1, 5 to 2, or 3 to 1. And I think about, okay, what realistically is more likely here? This horse is going to be 4 to 5. Okay, I'll use the lowest end on him. I'll make him 2 to 1. And then the chart goes from there, and you follow the chart. The highest the chart goes, the one that we would use at the Meadows, was 20 to 1. And so even if I thought a horse was going to be 50 or 60 to 1, he's 20 to 1 on the morning line. But more important for me is that ranking. And so, like I said, we make our living in this business in that sweet spot. Those horses, they're 4 to 1 to 10 to 1. Those are the ones that we really can sink our teeth into and really make some profit on. To me, those are the horses that are the morning line's going to rank 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Most people, a lot of people, can look at a program and figure out who the favorite's going to be and figure out who the pitch horses are, who you're not going to use. It's figuring out that 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th that really makes the difference between winning money and losing money. And I feel as though that's kind of my job to help people figure that out when I'm making morning line odds.
Great stuff, Jeff. And, we got so many questions we could ask you. We could fill a whole afternoon, and we'll have you back on the show definitely to, have this stuff. And guys listening to the show, if you like having guests like this and, you have questions, we'd love to hear from you, and we'll have guests on and do this. And like I said, this is a guy that's been in the business, as long as I have been in the business. I've been just a few years longer than that, and you get those races, and it's got to be fun. I know that the guy that you took over for Roger Houston, as I said, was a legend, and your styles are different. You're more, I don't want to say, don't want to demean the way that Roger called races, because it was exciting. Roger got excited about racing. One of my favorite, I have two favorite races, of Roger. Obviously, the Breeders' Crown race, Jeff Mallett and Dragon's Lair. That's got to go down, and if you ever want to do that, just Google on YouTube, Breeders' Crown, Dragon's Lair, and listen to Roger Houston's call of that race. And my, second favorite race that Roger called, and it was just, an old horse I had for a long time. I bought the horse at a sale. You'll remember the name, Jeff, Mystical Lady. I had a long time ago. It was one of my favorite horses. We had her at the farm and we're racing her, and she was getting close to $100,000. And back then, the Meadows used to give out blankets for horses when they earned $100,000. Roger was in charge of that. He took care of it, and she had like 97,000 on her card. So Roger ordered the blanket. It took her months to get that last bit over the $100,000 mark. But I remember that race. She loved the mud, and that night the track was covered in mud. She was a closer, had no gate speed. Part of that was the driver she had on her too. Frankie never, he didn't leave the gate too often, Frank Lesnar. And she come flying on the end. And Roger's call, there was you could put a blanket across them at the finish. She was 7 wide coming down the stretch. They were all there. And Roger's call was, and I don't know how he comes up with stuff like that in the middle of a race, but he yells, because she's 7 wide, she's right there at the apron. He yells, "Move the grandstand! Here comes Mystical Lady flying on the outside!" And it was a photo finish. We ran to the winner's circle to, because we didn't know if we got the head bob or not, but I thought we got up because she was so wide and the other horse was on the inside. And the whole time we're waiting for them to put up the photo, Roger's telling the story about the blanket. He said he's had this blanket for Mystical Lady for all these months waiting for it. And he goes, I thought she never was going to get it. And then they put the photo up and she won the photo. And that's my favorite race of Roger Houston. Somewhere I have a VHS tape of that, somewhere in a box in storage somewhere. I'd love to find that, but that was a great night for me. Sig, you've been quiet for a while. We've been talking. Sorry about that, but reminiscing down the lane. I know you enjoy those horse stories. We all do. And sometime you and Jeff are out here together. We'll have a horses night out. We'll head to Herbs and Rye. Anybody that's followed me on any podcast I've done over the years, and I've talked about special hideaways here in Vegas, I've turned both of you guys on to Herbs and Rye. And every trip that you guys come out individually, we always find us at Herbs and Rye for happy hour steaks, 50% off at the Herbs and Rye, and it's
assuming you remember which place to show up at.
Yeah. Last time Jeff was Jeff, I introduced Jeff to 2 steak places. I don't know. I totally freaking blanked that night because I also introduced him to Echo and Rig. And he loves that place as well, as does Sig. Sig and I have been to Echo and Rig many times. And Jeff says, I'll meet you for steak tonight. And he did tell me Herbs and Rye, but for some reason, I went to Echo and Rig. And I showed up and I'm like, text him, I'm here waiting inside. So are we. And I go upstairs, I'm looking around, and no Jeff. And I was at the wrong place. They waited for me. I don't know that you would have waited for me, Sig. I think you would have hurried up and ate a steak and then just sat there when I got there and had him clear the plate and have another.
Anything wrong with that?
No, not at all. Sig, we're going to go to the news and notes, but according to Twitter, they liked my intro last week. So I got to keep the segment, because you didn't show up with a horse's head. So this segment is straight from the horse's mouth from the horse's ass. And this is Sig's segment. And Sig, I'm going to throw it to you. I know you follow the harness racing, thoroughbred racing. Jeff sent me a note 2 days ago on Ontario opening up both thoroughbred and harness racing. And they sent out a memo for horse racing. Horses are not going to have to qualify. In harness racing, if you haven't raced in 30 days, you generally have to run a qualifying race, basically a practice race, make sure that your horse can go in, the right speed and doesn't make a break and so forth. Since February 1st, so as long as you've raced February 1st, this one is the big one. No breathalyzer test for drivers or riders, and the weight allowance for jockeys is increased. So all over Canada, fat drunk jockeys are rejoicing. They can hit it.
Marco,
what do you think?
In other news, Kent DeSorma was trying to find somebody to get him over the border.
Oh, well, I guess Kent's not going to be a guest on the show. Sid, what else do you got for us? Take it away, buddy.
In real other news, we do have a date for the Belmont Stakes. June 20th, running at Belmont Park. It is going to run at 1 1/8 miles. So there's been an uproar on Twitter this week about it's not the real test of champions. We don't have a true Triple Crown. But come on, people. We have the Belmont Stakes. We have all 3 Triple Crown races scheduled this year. Maybe they're in a different order, but you know what? We got them. So let's not bitch too much about it.
Sig, let me jump in one quick second of them changing the distance. And the minute I saw the announcement for the Belmont and saw that it was going to be the first race, I immediately texted you. And I didn't see that they changed the distance. And my text to you was immediately, I can't wait to see them put up the yes-no prop on will there be a Triple Crown winner or not this year. You can bet yes or no on that. And I said the no would be a prohibitive favorite in that, and I don't think they could set it high enough. And my thought was, if you're going to go the 1.5 miles first, a lot of the guys, the Kentucky Derby's the most prestigious race. Let's be honest about it, okay? Yes, you want to win the Triple Crown, but to win the Triple Crown, you got to win the Kentucky Derby in every other year than this year to start it. And I don't think that racing 1.5 miles first would have these horses still be able to come back and be sharp and ready to then race the other 2 legs how many months down the road. It's so hard, and everybody says, and the knee-jerk reaction would be, it's going to be easier to be a Triple Crown because they're spaced out better. You're going to have a couple months from the Belmont to the Kentucky Derby in September, and then more time before the Preakness, where normally the Preakness is the short race. You come back in 2 weeks. They're going to race that in October. People would think, that's a benefit. Yes, it's going to be easier to win the Triple Crown. But as Jeff knows, in training horses, owning horses, to keep a horse at peak performance condition for that many months, going from June all the way to October, it's impossible. How many times do you see horses that were good on the Derby trail? They're nowhere to be found in, the end of the racing season. And how many horses we never even heard of on the Derby trail, like the horse that reminds me a couple of years ago, West Coast. He got a late start, but he was one of the beasts at the end of the year. So I thought the no would be a big factor. But because they are cutting it back to 1.8 miles, I think that levels the playing field, and I think more people will try, where I think some people would have totally skipped the Belmont, and you would have had long-distance horses that are just specialized for the Belmont that would have been taking their shot there with the 1.5 mile race, but now it's not. So I'm going to recant my run and bet the no on the Triple Crown.
Can't blame you on that one. We are going to actually have a modified Triple Crown this year if you look at it the right way. We got the Kentucky Derby at the first weekend of September, the Preakness the first weekend of October, and we're going to have the Breeders' Cup Classic the first weekend, full weekend of November. So, I mean, it's not just a 3-year-old race, but we are going to have 3 quality races lined up 4 weeks apart. So it's going to be a great end of the year for horse racing. In other news, if you're looking for the jockey Luis Saez this week, next week, maybe the week after, you're not going to find him. He's finally serving a 15-day suspension that was granted to him last year for careless riding, in the Kentucky Derby. He plans on returning back on June 4th at Belmont, but he may then have another week on the bench because he has another suspension of a 7-day suspension from NYRA for careless riding at Belmont last year. So we may not see Luis till mid-June, but he should be back at Belmont when they do open. This Monday is Memorial Day. We have racing at Gulfstream, we have racing at Churchill, we have racing at Santa Anita, among other tracks. Just want to remind you guys, we will have coverage on Monday from both, I'm sure, Marco and myself, with myself at Churchill, Marco, I'm sure, at Santa Anita. And who knows, we may throw some Gulfstream races in there or other races across the country. Marco's been crushing it at Charlestown. So if you're looking for evening racing, he's your guy.
In my life, I never thought I would be glued to the TV watching Charlestown races. I actually texted that to Jeff last night, and he had some fine remarks for me. Go ahead, Sig.
I mentioned the Belmont. We will not be seeing King Guillermo at the Belmont this year. Trainer Juan Avila said this week that they'll be training straight up until the Kentucky Derby that first weekend of September. So he will not run the Belmont Stakes. We'll see him come September. A couple tracks have been opening here. Lone Star Racetrack near Dallas opens tonight, and they have a pick six, a jackpot pick six with a 12% takeout, which is one of the best in racing. So if you are looking to bet evening racing and like to bet the multi-race wagers, Lone Star is a place to look for that pick six. Charlestown also last night introduced a pick five. It's not a jackpot wager, but they also have the same low 12% takeout. So these tracks, for the smaller tracks running at night, are offering some good wagering opportunities for multi-race bettors. Finally, there's some great races on Saturday at Churchill and Santa Anita. We're going to be covering the ones from Churchill. I'm sure Marco's going to be covered at Santa Anita tomorrow. But definitely, if you're looking for some good horse racing, you're going to get it this weekend. Marco, back to you.
All right, good stuff, Sig. We appreciate that straight from the horses. You know what? Just jump in here and remind everybody that obviously you know about our show, The Pony Pundits, but every day at WagerTalk, we're doing live shows, both at WagerTalk and Sports Memo. You can check out the shows live daily at 2 shows daily, 12 Eastern and 3 p.m. Eastern. Different shows every day. Of course, Pony Pundits every Friday, 3 o'clock Eastern time. Be sure to stay there and tune in with us as we will be running these shows all through the summer. Guys, race of the day this week. We're going to go to Churchill Downs race. It is the Blame Stakes. And there is going to be a scratch in that race. And it's number 11, American Anthem. And, how did I find out this horse is going to be scratched? Well, it's our special guest today, Jeff. He sent me a text yesterday and told me don't handicap American Anthem. Why, Jeff?
Well, the owner of that horse is a man named Don Tiger, and Don owns a lot of horses at the Meadows. In fact, Don and I have been partners on horses in the past. And I reached out to Don a couple of nights ago and said, hey, I see you've got a horse in this race at Churchill. Tell me about him. And he said, I'm going to scratch him, and we're pointing him toward the Carter Stakes on June 6th. So, again, this is what he said 2 days ago, and that was his intention at the time. But I'd still take a look at the race with that horse in it just to be careful, because until you actually see that scratch pop up on the screen, you never know if somebody's mind might change or something like that. But the information I received as of yesterday is that horse is not going to run tomorrow. It's going to be pointed toward a June 6th stake.
All right. We love to have guys connected. That's for let's start with you, Sig, on the race of the day. It is race 9. How do you see this race unfolding on Saturday at Churchill?
Marco, I know how to pick them. I mean, when I pick a race of the day, it's usually the best race on the card or on the weekend. But this
I kind of thought you were going to go with the Maxfield race. I was surprised when you picked the race of the day, but it is a doozy.
It is one hell of a race. I went to my clock pick in here is Global Campaign, 9-2 on the morning line, the number 3 horse, making a second start as a 4-year-old. The Curlin Colts won the Peter Pan at Belmont last year, beating Sir Winston, who then went on to follow that up by winning Sir Winston won the Belmont the following month. So pretty quality horse there. He closed 3-year-old campaign, finishing third in the Jim Dandy behind two talented colts, Tax and Tacitus. So he's racing some pretty good competition here. He won his 4-year-old debut in an allowance optional claimer at Gulfstream in April, going 7 furlongs, and trainer Stanley Huff's winning at a 29% rate when going from the sprint to route. So I think the Gulfstream race was a nice prep for the day, and I think Global Campaign's your horse to beat.
All right, who are you using with them, Sig?
Looking at my second choice in here is Owendale, 3-1 in the morning line. The Into Mischief colt for Brad Cox was king of the secondary stakes last year as a 3-year-old. He won the Lexington at Keeneland, went on to finish third in the Preakness, and then won both the Ohio Derby and the Oklahoma Derby while squaring off with some semi-quality fields. He also took on some good fields in the Travers as well as the Breeders' Cup Classic before closing out his year with the runner-up finish, the Tom's Day at Ta and the Clark at Churchill. When trainer Brad Cox has Florent Giroux in the irons, he wins at a 26% rate, and 61% of those runners finish in the money. He's a key contender in here, and I would have liked to see a race under his belt before taking on this field today. So that's why I have him in my second spot. I think he's definitely a contender, but I would love to see him race here since November. My third choice here is Mr. Money, 5-1 in the morning line. The Golden Sense colt loves Churchill Downs. He has 3 wins in 4 races there, and a trip to his home track might be the wake-up call he needs. His first effort this year in the Oklahoma Mile resulted in a 6th-place finish. He'll need to improve upon that effort to compete here, but he has a nice 4-furlong work at 47-8, so I'm not counting him out here. Closing out my top 4 in here, I went with the 14 Diamond King, 10-1 in the morning line. He looked good in his 2020 debut, winning the Stymie Stakes back in March. I'm not a big fan of his jock, Kendrick Carmouche, but I think you need to use this horse in the bottom of your exotic tickets. What I'm doing here is I'm betting the 3 Global Campaign, anywhere 9-2 on that morning line. With a large talented field, there will be enough money in the pool that I think that those morning lines are going to hold up pretty well. I'm going to bet an exacta box with the 3, 8, and the 13, and a trifecta box with 3, 8, 13, and 14.
All right, good stuff, Sig. Head on over to Jeff. How are you seeing race 9 at Churchill?
Well, let me preface this by saying that, again, I'm a harness guy. I can work my way around a thoroughbred. As you, above anybody else, knows, my primary way to handicap a thoroughbred race is this, and that is where I log into my favorite wagering platform, I print out my program, I get my pen ready, and then I grab my phone and text you and say, Marco, who do you like? So that's my preferred method for handicapping thoroughbreds. I like Owendale. First appearance of the year. He was third in the Preakness last year. I mean, they had some high hopes for this horse at one point. He ended the season in a grade 1 and was pretty competitive. I like the bullet work that he had in late April. That one really caught my eye. He's been working regularly. His workouts lately have not been all that overpowering, but they kind of tipped, to me, they tipped their hand a little bit in late April with what they had. The question is he just not quite as sharp right now, or did they just really not try to overdo it in these last couple of workouts? But I'm going to take a shot that Owendale's ready to go today. After that, I like Silver Dust. Silver Dust lunged at the gate last time, and then he rushed out of there. So he had a little trouble at the start, rushed up and worked his way toward the front. I think he just burned himself up a little bit too early. And if you look at his previous 5 efforts, they were all top 2 finishes. So I think you might get a little bit of value today tomorrow with the 7 Silver Dust morning line 8-1. After that, I'm going to Global Campaign. His state career was derailed last year early. They thought enough of him to put him in the Fountain of Youth prep race early in the season, and he finished 5th. It wasn't that bad, but after that, they didn't pursue the higher level stuff. They dropped him down to a grade 3. He won, worked his way back up, tried a grade 2, and then he kind of quit early for the year. He's come back strong, 25th, and it's one of those things where from being a horse owner, you might have a horse that you think is going to be a stake horse, and then he doesn't quite pan out. So you drop him down in class. He builds up a little bit of confidence, and you decide, well, let's give him another shot at a stake race. And I think that might be the case here with Global Campaign. They're going to give him another shot. He's earned it, and I think he might be able to hit the ticket in here. The other one that I like is Extraordinary Jerry, the 9. Drawing some attention, for me at least, at 12-1 with Castellano. Here's a horse that is coming off a 10-length win last time out. So hard to argue with the success he had, in that Gulfstream stake, and so I'm going to throw that one in there. My preferred way of betting, I like exacta boxes. If I see somebody that I really like, I'll run the horse first and second in exactas. A race where I don't have quite as much insight into, such as this race, that to me, that's a 4-horse box all the way. And so what I'm looking at is 8, 7, 3, and 9. So the 3, 7, 8, 9, 4-horse exacta box.
All right, good stuff. Well, guys, we're dancing around the same numbers. I have Owen on top in this one, number 8 as well. And Jeff, as far as that, the workouts, and I've talked about this with Sig many times whenever looking at workout patterns. My preferred pattern, and again, it goes from my days of how we trained horses down and so forth. I like to see the fast work, then a little slower. Fast work, a little slower. And what I'm looking at is the number of workouts that this horse has had. So to me, they've had 8 workouts since March 29th. That's a lot of official workouts, telling me they're building the foundation for him to be ready to fire right out of the gate. So I do have Owendale up on top. My second choice is number 13, Mr. Money, and we're also all on this horse. And prior to his last race, if you look at the program, Mr. Money, he had a stretch going back last year where he raced 9 straight graded stakes. And in that stretch, he had a 6-race stretch where he won 5 of them and had a second by a neck. That's an incredible stretch in graded stakes. And his last race of last year came in the Breeders' Cup, Dartmouth, and it was a situation where he didn't race well. I think he finished 7th in that race. And you look at, that was November. This horse had a long year. He started his racing season in February and raced all the way through November. And Jeff, you know that from our days with horses. Horses get tired after a long campaign. They're not machines. Even though they might be racing well, you need to give them a break. I've done that so many times. Case in point, my horse at the Meadows, Sin City Lori. We gave her a break, brought her back just before all this stuff started with COVID-19. She raced 3 times. She came back so good. We brought her back, put her on Lasix. 2 wins in a second, just beat at the wire. And then we get the shutdown. You got to stop with these horses. So last race last year and the first race this year, I know my style is we generally like to have a tightener beforehand. Now, I said Sin City Lori come out of the gate with a win right off the bench. We qualified her not once but twice. Most people qualify their horses just once. We qualified her twice to get the foundation under her so she would be ready to fire off the bench. I think that first race that they had with Mr. Money was more of a prep race for this race, and that's why I like Mr. Money. And if you're going to look for a price to beat Owendale, this is the horse that I think is there on the ticket. After that, I agree with you guys. I have number 3, Global Campaign, as my third choice, and my fourth choice is Silver Dust, number 7. So we're pretty much in agreement on 3, and with 3 of the 4 horses on our ticket. So one of us should come out. Hopefully, we all come out of race 9 live in the pick 4. This will be one of the legs in the pick 4. We'll talk about that in a moment, and obviously it is a great time to segue into the pick 4. And guys, we're going to run through our pick 4. I only want you to talk about your top choice. Give me a sentence or 2 on them, because we are going to be short on time today, and I know, and I had to agree to it. So you guys, story time at the end, you want to stay. I agreed to let Jeff tell this about me. It's the only way I could get him on the air this week. So you don't want to miss it, and we want to save time for that. So let's start with the pick 4. Sig, I'm going to ask you for your pick 4. Go ahead and just run. We'll go right through the races. Give your 4 legs, your numbers, and if you have something to say on your top horse, obviously race 9 is the second leg. We just have to give the numbers once again because we've talked that race in detail. Go ahead with your Sig. How are you playing your pick 4? And we have to bow. what is it, 3 pick fours in the last 5 weeks?
It's 3 and since we started the show. I'm not sure. Or is it 4 since we started the show? I don't know. I'm still wearing the shirts, though. So
yeah, I know. Mr. Pickford. He texts me nonstop, Jeff. Nonstop. Okay, go ahead.
All right, guys. Well, it's the late pick 4 sequence at Churchill on Saturday. We're looking at races 8 to 11. Kicks off with race 8, the Tepin Stakes, for 3-year-old fillies on the turf. I went 6 deep in here. This is a tough field for me. On top, I got 14 Alms, 3-1 on the morning line. Undefeated 3-year-old filly just seems to keep improving with each outing. But there are a number of quality fillies in here, so I couldn't just single her on top. I went with 14, followed by 9 Sharing, 7 Outburst, the 3 Walkin' Marrakesh, 2 Abscond, and 10 Past the Plate. If I don't get through the first leg, I'm burning this shirt. Race 9's the Blaine Stakes we already covered for you as race of the day. I went 3 deep here. 3 Global Campaign, 8 Owendale, and 13 Mr. Money. Race number 10 is the Matt Wynn Stakes. For 3-year-olds, it's a mile and 16th on the dirt. This is a Derby prep. I went with a single here, guys, because otherwise this ticket I started to stick it out around $200. So I'm not playing a $200 ticket. I'm not asking you to play a $200 ticket. So I'm singling the 10 Maxfield in here. The Street Sense Coles had a promising beginning with 2 wins in his first career starts. He won a maiden special weight at Churchill last September and followed that up with an impressive 5-length win in the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland. Right before he was one of the favorites going on the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, but was sidelined right before that in November with ankle surgery, and then he had some time for recovery. But trainer Brendan Walsh got him back on the track in February. He's been working him consistently fast. Walsh was originally planning on getting home and have him ready for the Kentucky Derby, so having a few extra weeks here, a prep time followed by the Derby being pushed back to September, is perfect for him. He's my single in this sequence. I'm a gambler. I got to take him here. I think he's the horse, and we're going to stick with the single here with 10 Maxfield. If I did go deeper here, there's a horse I like that is he's kind of hidden in this field. He's the 2 Pneumatic. It's a Steve Asmussen horse with Ricardo Santana making his 3rd career start. Both wins so far, but if a horse is going to jump out of this field, I think it's the 2 Pneumatic, but we are singling Maxfield. Race 11 is the War Chance Stakes for 3-year-olds, going 1 mile on the turf. I also went with a shot here on top, the 1 South Bend's 12-1 on the morning line. We talk about trouble trips all the time on the show, and this colt had one last out. And he should be a nice price if people look at and see his last performance here. He won his first 3 starts before competing in some very talented stakes company board in 6 of his first 8 starts. He gets his normal jockey, Jolien Leperoux, back in the irons. And his last time at Gulfstream earlier this month, Miguel Vasquez, another good jockey, was aboard for the English Channel Stakes, but he finished 7th. He was only 5 lengths back, but he had a wide trip, had traffic problems, got bumped at the top of the stretch. A better ride tomorrow. He's there to finish. I love him at 12-1. I also used the 6 Hieronymus, hope I pronounced that right, the 9 Smooth Like Straight, the 5 Field Pass, and the 3 Island Commission, another long shot 12-1 that could win that race. So my ticket ended up being 6 by 3, by 1 by 5. It's a $45 ticket. Once again, 14, 9, 7, 3, 2, and 10, with 3, 8, and 13, with 10, with 1, 6, 9, 5, 3. That's how I see it, Marco.
All right, good stuff from Mr. Pick 4 himself. Jeff, we're going to go to you, and you have a pick 4 for us, and you have a second pick 4, and that second pick 4 only costs $4, and I'll have you explain when you get to that why, and give us your pick 4, please.
Okay, first, Sig, don't feel bad about texting him all the time. This is what I get. I don't know if you can see this, but this is a picture of a steak. I get these every night. Okay.
Jeff, I get those too, and he gets one more response back that I can't say on the air.
Well, I'll say that it rhymes with sucker.
On that pleasant note, I'm going to go 3 deep into the first leg of the pick 4 and taking a shot because I am not using a horse that may end up being the favor, which is the 14. I'm going with the 4, the 7, and the 9. The 9 Sharing is my top pick. I like them in order 9, 7, 4, and then the 14. I had to drop somebody, I drop the 14. Don't like the post, never been out that far. Major concerns for me with Alms being that far out, did not use the horse. Sharing, Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly winner, first start of the year, 3 or 4 lifetime. I think this horse is going to take a lot of play. May end up being the favorite over the 14, but I do like the 9 quite a bit. If you're looking for a long shot, the 4 Road Trouble at the start last time at the fairgrounds, still came back and won. So kind of like the 4 Dominguez, a longer price there. Second leg, like I said, I like Owendale. I'm going 4 deep into that one. I'm going 8, 7, 3, and 9. So three of them in the first leg, leaving out a top choice though. 4 of them in the second leg. Third leg, I almost did what you did, Sig. I almost singled Maxfield. I wanted to, but I probably should have stuck Alms in my ticket and cut down this one, but I'm taking a shot. If I can get through the first leg, I'm going to have some more shots down the road. I'm going 10, 11, 12, and 6. Maxfield, he's carrying the most weight in here for a reason. Graded stake winner. This horse is very, very good. Attachment rate, the 11, all 4 of his efforts this year have been good. And he's bounced back and forth. He's gone from New York to Florida and back, and he's handled that well. And that's a lot for a horse, especially in the cooler months of the year. Major Fed the 12, I think, is an interesting proposition. He's going to be 8 wide. But guess what? He was 8 wide last time out, and he still was rallying. So any horse that can rally 8 wide, like Marco's horse, Mystical Lady, you got to give this one a look. So Major Fed's one to look at. And the 6 New York Traffic was a long shot, grabbed second in the Louisiana Derby. That was the other horse I wanted to give a little look to, and so I threw the 6 onto my numbers. If I make it to the 4th leg, I've only got 2 shots. My favorite pick there is the 9 Smooth Like Straight. Velasquez is a plus. This horse is shipping from the West Coast for a reason. I do look at that. He's the only horse in that field that hasn't been racing, in the eastern half of the United States. He's coming a long way. You're not going to load this horse up on. I know they probably brought a bunch and he got dragged along, but still, you're not going to bring this horse east to be non-competitive. And so I'm looking for Smooth Like Straight to be very good in the 11th. And then Hieronymus, he's 4 for 5 lifetime. Both of his races this year have been good. Now he's facing a much tougher task this time. We'll see if he's up to it. So 9 and 6 in that 4th leg. So my numbers: 4, 7, 9 in the opening leg, 3, 7, 8, 9 in the second leg, 6, 10, 11, and 12 in the third leg, and then using the 6 and the 9 in the 4th leg. That's a $48 play. However, my theory is sometimes when you look at these races, you see a lot of chalk, and I think this pick 4 has the potential for some very low prices. So I'm looking at putting $48 into this play. It may come back and only pay $30. I may hit this and lose money, which is one of the things that you really hate being a gambler. So looking at those chalk horses, I'm going to play a second ticket that's only going to cost me a couple of bucks, and I'm going to make that second ticket. I'm trying to bring that up here on my other screen now. My second ticket, I'm going to do singles in the 1st and the 3rd leg. So I'm going to single the horse in the 8th race, Sharing. Going to single that one, and then in the 3rd leg, I'm going to come back. Where'd my numbers
10.
go?
You had the 10, Maxfield.
Maxfield, yeah. So I'm going to single that. So I'm going to leave the 2nd leg and the 4th leg intact using multiple horses. But when I get to that 1st leg and the 3rd leg, I'm going to single. So that play is going to be very, very cheap for me. I would rather add a couple of bucks to try to catch a second $30 payoff. And so now, instead of betting 48 and getting back 30, I'm betting 52 and getting back 60. I will gladly, and if I get some longer shots in, I'll gladly take the $200 win and give up that extra and lose my $2 or $4 on that backup ticket. So I am somebody who likes that idea ticket, a cheaper second ticket, just in case that payoff comes back a little low.
Good stuff, Jeff. I am going to run through mine pretty quickly, guys, because I want to save you time for story time. And here is mine for Saturday's pick 4 at Churchill Downs. And I'll tell you, too, follow us on Twitter. Sig always puts the tickets up on Twitter on Saturday. You'll be able to see them. We'll have them printed out. This week he's got to print out 3 of them for Jeff and myself. I'm going race 8. 14, 3, and 9. We've talked about the 14 horse quite a bit, but I just want to talk real quick about the 3 Walk in Marrakesh. I've been waiting for this horse to race. This is one of the horses that's been on my watch list. This horse had a ton of trouble in his last race. Left the gate. Trouble early in the race, just shortly after they left the gate as they were heading into the first turn. For some reason, he had to grab up on the horse. You could see the horse's head go up. So he checked him there. And then when he was making his big run through the final turn, he had to check again, go wide, but he was flying in the turn, and he was losing a lot of ground making his big move in the turn, and ran out. Looks like just an average fifth place finish. He only got beat 2.5 lengths. The horse that won the race won by a couple lengths clear. There was a blanket of horses there for second through fifth, and I think that if he gets a cleaner trip, that will help here. Plus the fact he picks up Ortiz. So that's why if you're looking for a price, he's 10-1 on the morning line. I have him 14.39 in the first leg. Second leg, we talked about this race already. I'm going 3 deep in this race. I'm going 8, 13, and 3. Owendale being the overwhelming favorite. Another horse that was Mr. Money we talked about. Going to the 10th race. This is the race where I had a horse circled on my list, waiting to race again. And what happens? He shows up in a race with Maxfield. One of them, of all the races. But I've been waiting for Major Fed to run back. I bet Major Fed in his last race. He had all kinds of trouble in that race. Broke poorly from the gate. Was flying late. If he gets a cleaner trip this time, I think he has a chance to pull the upset. This is a horse that is on the Derby Trail, as is Maxfield. I'm going to go ahead, and that's why I'm not singling in this race with Maxfield, because I think this race can give us a big number, and I'm going with the 10, the 12, Major Fed, and then I put in the 6 in there, another horse that will give us a little bit of a price. I don't know, is it NY traffic, New York traffic, whatever, but I like Keener here. Safi, Joseph Safi's had a great meet down there in Gulfstream last year, won the Pennsylvania Derby, his first grade 1 race, so look at him as well. And then in the last leg, I went 4 deep in the 11th race, and we are going with the 6 on top. That is my choice. Number 9, second, and also 12 and 3. A lot of the same numbers, so hopefully, maybe somehow we can squeeze out 3 for 3 on the pick 4s for tomorrow. That would be nice. And if that would happen, Jeff, you definitely would have to come back for sure. So my pick 4 comes out to $54. And now we head to story time. I am going to set the stage, and then I will pass it off to Jeff. I know he's eagerly been waiting to tell my most embarrassing moment at a racetrack. And I don't even, here we go. It was several years ago, after I moved out here to Vegas, and I was going back to the Meadows. It was Adios week. That's our grand circuit week at the Meadows. Their big race. I was fortunate several years ago to win the Philly division of the Adios, the Adio Volo. And so I didn't want to miss that. We had our tickets booked, hotel reservation. And a couple days before the trip, I got that feeling. And I know my buddies on this show all have had this feeling because they've all experienced kidney stones as I have. You know the feeling when one's coming. And I started trying to drink a lot of water and everything, but I'm one that doesn't pass kidney stones. I've had to have procedures to get them out whenever I get them. And I didn't say anything to Lori because I knew if I told her, she would say, we're not going. We're not going back to Pennsylvania, and you end up in the hospital and this and that, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't tell her. The plane trip, little bit of turbulence, shaking around on the plane. I was miserable. The kidney stone moved, but it didn't. didn't move out. It just moved. And I was in excruciating pain. I didn't say anything to her till we went to baggage claim. We got the bags. We went to rental car pickup. And I never let her drive. Especially, somewhere where she knows where she's going. She's not familiar with Pennsylvania and everything. And I tossed her the keys, and I said, "You're driving." She goes, "Why?" I said, "We're not going to the hotel to check in. Drive me straight to the hospital." I said, and she goes, "What's wrong?" And I told her, well, she wasn't really happy with me at that point. Went to the hospital. I got admitted. They ended up, and I explained the situation. I said, "I have to be out by Saturday. I cannot be in here. It's the adios." Okay? We had a horse racing on the card that day and everything. I said, "I got to get out of here." I wanted to get out by, so I could go to Friday night for the adios Volo and everything else. And then they discharged me. I don't know any kidney stone, know what procedures happened, but you guys hear me? Audio. Oh boy. Let me text the Prez.
Oh, we're back now.
We're back now? Okay.
We got it now.
Prez got it now. So hope everybody heard the lead into that. I left the hospital. I was able to go to the races on Friday night, watch the races. Jeff, you were there. Take it away.
Well, if you've had a kidney stone bad enough, one of the most excruciating parts of it is if they have to put a stent in you. And apparently yours was bad enough that that's what they had to do. So they had to take basically a drinking straw, and not the fun bendy kind. They had to take a drinking straw and...
drinking straw.
Yeah, a very long drinking straw. And they insert that so that it helps to allow the stone to pass through. But what they do so that they can retrieve the non-bendy drinking straw, 5 feet long, is they leave a string on the end of it that is hanging outside of your body so that they can then grab that string and pull that out whenever you go back to the doctor. Now, those of you listening to this story right now, if you are cringing in pain at this point, just wait. So we go to the track that night, and it's getting near the end of the night, and we're getting ready to leave, and Marco says, "I'm going to go hit the men's room. I'll be back." Now, I'm standing outside waiting for him. All of a sudden, he comes out, and he is white as a ghost. And I said, "Marco, what's wrong?" And he goes, the stent. And I said, "What happened?" So he proceeds to tell me that he went in there, they went to the men's room, fulfilled his mission, and then he was all he had to do was just zip himself up and be done and go wash his hands. Well, unfortunately, apparently he caught the string in the zipper. And so, consequently, as the zipper went up, the string pulled and started to pull the stent out. And at this point, with him telling me this story, I'm feeling two sets of emotions. I'm feeling both sympathy and empathy combined because I've been there. I've done myself, and I can feel his pain. But that emotion for me was completely overshadowed by the fact that I could not stop laughing at him. And I was almost on the ground laughing at him. And of course, the poor man is in pain and he's shaken horribly by this event. And here he comes out and tries to tell somebody who he thinks can sympathize with him, and I'm about on the ground. And so it was, as you say, it was one of your most embarrassing racetrack stories, but unfortunately, or I guess fortunately for you, nobody knew about it except me, but now you've chosen to let me tell everybody about it. So it was just a horrible zipper accident for you that night, Marco.
It was the zipper incident, yes. And to close out the story, when I got back to the hotel room and called the hospital to see what I could do, because as you know, it's half in, half out, and we're just not good. My choices were either to come to the hospital or pull it out myself. Well, hell no, I'm not pulling it out. Gloria, she was so excited to volunteer. She ripped that son of a bitch out. That night, I grabbed, you know how they always say, face down pillow, I had her pillow in my face, but it wasn't pleasurable, let me tell you.
And I doubt if you were face down.
That is the most embarrassing story. And on that note, we will wrap up today's show. There's nowhere else to go after that. Jeff, it's been a pleasure having you on. You're not racing right now at the Meadows, so apparently you've got a lot of free time because the Meadows is closed. Please open back up. We need to get racing. And Sig, as always, thanks and for joining me every week and doing the Pony Pundits. Remember, you can catch Sig every day. Check out his horse selections, of course, mine, always there on the weekends and all the big races. And yes, I'll even throw up Charlestown for you now and again. So check it out. Till next week, 3 Eastern. This has been the Pony Pundits. Good luck. Hope to see you guys in